He's been called the most underrated player in the NFL. He's been called the most overrated player in the NFL. He's also been called the next Brett Favre, a choke artist, a stud, waste of a contract, a franchise savior, and even Patrick Mahomes' greatest rival. But before all that, he was just a cotton farmer from California. This is his story. Everyone imagines California as a hotspot of celebrities, supermodels, and luxury cars. And while that might be true in Los Angeles or other cities along the coast, that's not really true about the majority of the state. Roughly 25% of California is used for farming, and for those of you who don't know, it's not an easy life. Growing up on a 3,000-acre farm, his life was similar to most kids growing up in a small town. He worked on the farm, went to school, played sports, worked in his mother's restaurant, then went to bed. It's a simple life most people never experience. However, like most people living a simple life, he dreamed of bigger things. His dream was to play for Fresno State. Growing up a short drive away from the school, he idolized the Bulldogs. However, as he grew older, he never received an offer. In fact, he never received any offer from any D1 schools. Him and his brother played every sport: basketball, baseball, swimming, but his biggest passion was football. It's common for kids from a small town to play lots of sports, mainly because the team needs players, or there's just not a lot to do. But because he never dedicated himself to football, Fresno scouts decided he wasn't worth it. Combine that with the thought he was undersized, his dream was beginning to look just like that. A dream. He never participated in any football camps, one of the best ways to be seen by scouts. His small town never got a lot of exposure, and at this point the only awards he ever won were due to his agricultural knowledge. Eventually, a scout from a junior college decided to give him a chance. This being his only path available to him at the time, he took it. The school was Reedley College, a campus that was much smaller than his family farm back at home, and only enrolls about 12,000 students a year. In his first season with the Tigers, he led the team to around 450 yards of offense a game, but this was only after sitting the bench for the first 3 games of the season. When he was named starter, he had 28 touchdown passes, which tied him for 7th place out of California junior college quarterbacks. Not a glowing stat, but this is all he had. By the end of the season, the undersized quarterback had grown to 6'5", 210, and had amassed a respectable portfolio for scouts. All his coaches at Reedley assumed they would never see him again, as they expected offers to come rolling in to the up-and-coming farm boy. They didn't. After sending tapes to as many scouts as humanly possible, 2 schools got back to him with scholarship offers: Eastern Michigan and Wyoming. He decided to tour Wyoming first, and Eastern Michigan didn't like this, not one bit, so they withdrew their offer. When Wyoming's coaches visited Reedley, they weren't even there to watch him, but eventually he caught their eye. In turn, Wyoming offered him the starting position, telling his parents they loved their son and they were going to make him the face of the program. Granted, this was after their first choice of quarterback committed to another school, but before he accepted Wyoming's offer, he sent one last email to Fresno State, telling them that he's grown in size since high school and their current star quarterback was smaller than he was. A last farewell to Fresno State, which can be summed up in 2 words: big mistake. The Wyoming Cowboys had their new gunslinger at the helm. This was finally the opportunity that he'd been pushing for. In his first start, he only attempted 4 passes, as before that 5th one could come off, the defense broke through the offensive line and then broke his collarbone. Any upper body injury of that nature can send any quarterback into an early retirement. However, he healed at an abnormally fast rate and came back for the next season bigger, faster, and stronger. His coaches were blown away by the recovery and seemingly massive upgrade he made since his injury. You can say what you want about the simplistic lifestyle of farming, but from a young age it teaches you 2 things: hard work is expected, and if something's broke, you fix it. The 2016 season was his first full year at Wyoming, and oh boy, did he not disappoint. 3,200 passing yards with 28 touchdowns was already enough to make him a machine. But add on the fact he developed himself into a true dual-threat quarterback, adding on 523 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. When most quarterbacks break out of the pocket, they go into a slide once they get the first down. When he gets out of the pocket, the only way he stops is either if he's hit or if he touches the end zone. After a strong season at Wyoming, he began to consider entering the NFL draft. Surely, after the season he just had, there was one NFL team that would want him. However, he was advised to stay with Wyoming at least another year. Despite all his talent, he turned the ball over too much, and having one good season does not prove enough to NFL scouts. But coaches, scouts, family, and friends can only know so much, so he called an old friend, someone who understood completely what he was going through. Filled with a sense of anxiety as the phone rang, he contemplated all the questions he should ask. However, all seemed clear when Carson Wentz answered the phone. He made the decision to remain at Wyoming another year. The amount of interceptions he threw went down, he refined his game in a lower intensity environment than that of the NFL, and he led Wyoming to an 8-5 season and a victory at the Potato Bowl. He was finally ready for that next step. On the day of the 2018 draft, there was much debate as to where he would fall. Many debated number 1, many said he wouldn't even be drafted, but only time would tell. As Commissioner Roger Goodell walked on stage being welcomed with boos, he announced with the first pick in the 2018 draft, the Cleveland Browns selected Baker Mayfield. Mayfield just came off of winning the Heisman, and while he's been passed around the league a few times, he seems to have finally found a home in Tampa. But the question started to buzz around the league. How far would he drop? Another notable name at the quarterback position was Lamar Jackson, who dropped all the way to the last pick in the first round by the Baltimore Ravens. But I'm sure they're happy with their pick now. At the 2 spot, the Giants took Saquon Barkley. Next, the Jets took Sam Darnold, a guy who has respectfully not lived up to expectations. It was beginning to look like nobody wanted the cotton farmer from California. But eventually, the 7th pick finally arrived. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded down, moving to the 12th spot and taking Vita Vea. The Buffalo Bills were on the clock for the 7th pick. Once again, Roger Goodell stepped on stage and announced the future of the Buffalo Bills. But let's fast forward a second. With this pick, the Buffalo Bills changed the state of their franchise. In 2018, their new quarterback had to compete for the starting spot, but was eventually named backup at the start of the season. However, after an underwhelming first week, he would be named starter for Week 2. In Week 2 versus the Los Angeles Chargers, he performed much better of that of his predecessor, but still lost the game. It wasn't until Week 3 versus the Minnesota Vikings where everyone would realize the Bills made a great decision. In Week 3, the Buffalo Bills rookie quarterback torched the Vikings. 196 passing yards, 39 rushing yards, and a touchdown. And most famously, on 3rd and 10, he left the pocket and began to rush. Eventually, he jumped over linebacker Anthony Barr for a first down. By the way, the Bills were up 17-0, and it was the first quarter. This is a guy who has led the team to 4 straight division titles, has been a perennial Pro Bowler, and has been a thorn in Patrick Mahomes' side for years. The Buffalo Bills have now rivaled against Kansas City for a couple of seasons, and while Bills have never come close to matching the number of Super Bowl rings the Chiefs have, the Bills wouldn't even be in a position to compete if it wasn't for their quarterback from Wyoming, who Patrick Mahomes has praised for his nature on and off the field. So when Buffalo receives 80 inches of snow and Bills Mafia can't feel their fingers on a Sunday night, at least they know they have a chance at winning. Because with the 7th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills selected Josh Allen. Good evening, everyone. John here, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Sidelines, the show where I create an audio documentary on a different athlete each episode. Last episode, I did Derrick Rose. This was the first episode I've ever done about a football player, and to be honest, it was rather difficult for me because I don't know football that well, so I recruited the help of my friend Anthony Hudson. Ant is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. He's a genuine dude but also he knows more about football than anyone else that I know. So it only makes sense that he has his own show about it. It's called It's My Turn with Anthony Hudson. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. He also has an Instagram, just the It's My Turn podcast. All links will be in the description to go check him out. Ant talks about football in a way that makes it easy for the average listener to immediately grasp on and understand what's happening. And he makes it fun to just listen to his show and learn about football. And he has a different take than the mainstream media guys. And I think that's really important in sports media. On his Instagram, he does these player bios every once in a while where he takes kind of an outlandish or like not so popular player and just does a quick bio of their life and makes it really fun to listen to. And I get really excited to see, who he does every week. So go check him out wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Transistor. Go look at his Instagram. Go look at those player bios he does. They will change your life for the better. I promise. Anthony, I ain't going to hold you, bro. Thank you for helping me with the video, and I'll see y'all later.